Welcome to Duke. This video is designed for those of you considering the health professions, which might include medicine, dentistry, veterinary medicine, nursing, physical therapy, physician assistant, pharmacy, optometry, and many, many others. My name is Alyssa Pers. I'm an academic dean for students in Trinity College, a lecturer in the biology department, and serve as one of the pre-health advisors for undergraduates at Duke. This video is going to give you a brief introduction to the Health Professions Advising Office and how we work with students to prepare for health careers. We divide pre-health advising into two main areas of focus. For first and second year students, we work with course planning and experience planning and help you figure out what you need to do over the next 4 years in order to be ready to apply when you're finished here. Juniors, seniors, and alumni, our focus shifts to helping students to decide when they are ready to apply, plan for the application process, select schools, think about the timeline, and everything else that's needed to mount their applications. We also work with this group of students to provide a committee letter for some of the professional schools where that is welcome and valued. You can find more about our advising structure at prehealth.duke.edu/advising. We are going to make a big change this fall. We have already lost and are losing 3 critical advisors. And while we wait to replace those folks, we've had to adjust our resources so that we can serve the most students. So the important thing for our first year students to know is that we will be primarily doing advising for your needs through group advising events. So later on, I'll give you an opportunity to join our listserv where you can hear about those events. Most of the events, except for drop-ins for Q&A, will have a recorded component and be available on our website if you're not able to attend those events. But we do encourage you to look for events and programs rather than one-on-one advising, at least for this first semester. All right, so I mentioned finding the advising section of our website. This is a screenshot of the first page. You'll also find that we divide the informational parts of our website into explore, prepare, and apply, and these are really dependent on where you are. If you're unsure about which exact health profession you'd like to go into, Explore has some really useful information, especially a link to a website called explorehealthcareers.org that has really nice summaries of each career, what the job outlook is, general salaries, general preparation, and then really important links to the educational organization for each pathway. So if you're uncertain, that's a great place to start. For most of you, you'll have a career in mind, and the prepare section will give you plenty of great advice. I'll refer to a few things in an upcoming slide as key things to look at now in this section, but encourage you to explore. There are sample schedules, there are comments about AP credits and health profession schools and things like that, as well as if, we'll show classes for pre-medical students today, but you'll find resources for other health professions paths in that section as well. Later on, you'll turn to apply. You may also find some of the recorded events and other useful things under handouts and resources. Our shadowing program is not currently up and running due to COVID, but that will be reactivated, and we'll announce that through our listserv when that's available again. If you can't find answers to other questions, we do have some frequently answered questions or frequently asked questions on our website as well. So what do you need to know now to get started on the school year? As I mentioned, come to our pre-health workshops for advising. The first 2 weeks of classes, we're primarily going to focus on drop-ad-based Q&A to provide just-in-time advising. And then as the fall progresses, we'll do things like course planning and resources and getting started with experiences. So those workshops will help to feed hopefully many of your needs. One quick overview as a nice complement to this program is to read the pre-health guide. And this is one of the things that you can find on our website. If you go to that prepare section, it's one of the links on the top page of prepare. It's about 7 pages. Much of the content there is ways to figure out placement in courses needed for professions. So it's a lot of charts and information. It's very few pages of reading, but the reading that's there, I think, really helps you set the mindset about preparing for a health career. And then if you have other questions, continue to dive into the prepare section of our website. And as I've mentioned, it will be really important that you all sign up for our HPA listserv to get our weekly newsletters. You can link to this QR code to a short survey. And then once we get that survey information, we'll add you to the listserv. That's where we'll primarily be advertising the workshops. You'll also see that if someone's got a research position, we'll post it there. There are a lot of gap year opportunities. You not only need to sign up for the listserv, but I encourage you to read it, because there are just all kinds of good things that come through there, that this is our primary way of communicating with pre-health students. All right, so things to think about over the next 4 years. Academics. You don't want to make any rash decisions with your academics. There are plenty of classes that you'll need to take to meet professional matriculation requirements, prepare for standardized tests if your profession requires that. But you also have lots of other decisions that you need to make, and you need to make authentically. So your major. There is no pre-med major, there's no right or wrong here, but there's always a best for you. So don't take a major that overlaps really well with pre-health, so you have fewer classes to take if it's not in a field that you love. Don't be afraid to major in something that's complementary to the pre-health requirements. It's okay if you're not a STEM major. For some medical schools, having a diversity of majors can be really attractive. So again, take your time, explore. If you need to put off a pre-health class or two, it's perfectly fine. The majority of our students take a gap year. So really getting it right to pick a major and then take electives that you see as opportunities on your way to completing your degree are both really critical things to do as you build this academic profile. Becoming a lifelong learner, whether you're in Trinity College of Arts and Sciences and getting a liberal arts degree, or you're getting a professional degree from the Pratt School of Engineering, taking advantage of all the places where you have options with courses is really critical for laying this strong academic foundation. Medical schools are looking for service-oriented folks, so finding ways to do sustained and evolutionary service is important. 1 semester of service is not enough. But there are so many ways to do it. We're a very service-oriented campus. Find the things that make your heart sing, bring you satisfaction outside the classroom. One way to look for service in the beginning is to take a service learning class. This teaches you how to do critical reflection, and we find students can write better applications when they've thought about how something like service in the context of academics is promoting their growth, their learning about the world. But there are lots of other ways to do it if you don't have time to do a service learning class. We have lots of student organizations that provide opportunities for service. The Duke Partnership for Service is an umbrella organization that can help you get started, as well as numerous other pathways for service. And we promote these on our listserv as well. Getting contact with patients and building relationships, learning how to listen. These are really important parts of your education and preparation. Doing that patient contact along with shadowing providers will really start to help you formulate a much more nuanced, personal, and detailed discussion or narrative about why you want to go into the profession you want to go into. This is a really important piece of your application and your interviews and other parts of the process. So be doing these things as you go along so that you can make sure it's the right career for you, and convince admissions committees that you're well prepared and knowledgeable and just haven't spent time watching TV dramas about health careers. Research is also something many of our students will do. It's only a required expectation at some schools, and these tend to be the most highly ranked schools that have a lot of research going on. High ranking and grant dollars are two things that go hand in hand, so that's part of that. But research can be beneficial to everybody. Even if you're committed to community medicine, we have lots of opportunities to do research in health policy or community level interventions, as well as lots of opportunities to do basic science or clinical science research. Research is also a great way to go deep into your major, demonstrate passion, understand how knowledge gets made. So there is no expectation that you be at a bench doing biomedically relevant research. It is fine to do social science or other types, humanistic, other types of research. So if you aren't sure how to get started, we've got some getting started in research opportunities hosted by our undergraduate research support office, as well as other units on campus, and plenty of opportunities to get started through things like Bass Connections or summer research programs. So be on the lookout for those and find the best way for you to gain research experience. It's also really important that you remember not to provide hands-on care unless you're certified. And this one is really tricky because sometimes the authorities in charge of an experience will say, here, hold this incision together while I suture it. You should take a step back and say, I'm not qualified to do this, and I'm not comfortable doing so. Of course, if you go get trained as a emergency medical technician or a phlebotomist or a certified nurse's aide or some other kind of thing, then it is perfectly fine to deliver hands-on care. We probably see the greatest risk of making an ethical lapse like this when students are in developing countries. The certification standards are not the same as they are here, but medical schools will penalize you for a lapse in ethical judgment if you participate in these ways, whether it's a local norm or not. So please read about these things before you go into clinical settings and make sure that you're aware of what you should and should not be doing in those places. And we're happy to try to answer those questions if the issues arise. All right. Here is a brief list. Actually, it's not a brief list. Here's a list of required courses we commonly see at medical schools. For dental and veterinary schools, there's only slight variations of these. For other health professions, they are considerably different. So I encourage you to use our website, utilize our specialized advising to make sure that you are aware of your required courses. Everyone, whether you're pre-med and you see these easy handy lists or not, or you don't even find the lists on our website, every one of you should be going and looking at the websites of schools where you're likely to apply and look at actual requirements. I describe this list as realistic fiction. For our pre-meds, these are common requirements. So we make this list. You'll also see that some of these courses are also tested on the MCAT, the standardized test to get into medical schools. But there are schools that have very different sets of requirements, and you want to make sure that you are meeting those requirements. Likewise, most schools will take advanced placement credit for pre-medical students, but they vary in this. And so looking at requirements, looking at policies around AP where you have credits can be very helpful for you to make decisions about courses, and some of them are elective courses. If you don't believe how important this is, I urge you to go look up the requirements to get into Duke's School of Medicine and those of UNC Chapel Hill. They vary in probably one of the widest ways possible. And so you can see how medical schools articulate these lists of courses in very different ways. This is the standard list of courses that we provide for medical schools. And you can look in the prepare section of our website to get advice about the Duke classes that we offer. We will certainly be offering workshops this semester to help you put these courses into a 4-year plan. It feels overwhelming when they're listed like this. You probably have choices about whether to use advanced placement credits or not, or whether to place into courses like Chem 99 versus 101. So we're happy to help with some of those decisions. If you're still debating those things during drop ad, please come to our walk-ins during that time so we can help you figure out the best way to start for yourself. All right, while I've given you a list of experiences and a list of courses, it's imperative that you do more than prepare from a checklist. The applications for medical school are very different from those that get you into undergraduate. There's a lot more specified requirements for one thing, but there's also a greater expectation that you really write narratives that help them understand the unique ways in which you've prepared. Now, when I say unique, there's always a danger that people feel like they need to do something really odd or extraordinary. And what I really mean by unique is that you go back to that idea of authenticity. Am I studying the things that I'm most passionate about? Am I finding ways that they connect with some of my other experiences? Am I building depth and relationships with faculty and other adults and students that I meet through the process? If you do those things, you will have a unique narrative. It's also okay if you do things that kind of sit outside of that narrative and it doesn't all connect, or especially if you do things to try them out and they wind up pushing you in another direction. Sometimes students feel like they've wasted some time. Those are some of the most important experiences because they move you away from something you thought you were interested in, but ultimately didn't like. And they'll get you closer to where you need to be. Some thoughts about this, think about your life experiences. So these are opportunities inside and outside the classroom. Can you find ways to put yourself outside your comfort zone so you grow? Always choose options that reflect your values and interests, because that's a way for us to learn more about you and you to develop those interests. There are pre-medical competencies that you'll hear about as we work with you. These include things like teamwork, cultural competency, communication, written and oral, reliability, resilience, ethical responsibilities I've already mentioned, as well as the capacity to improve. How are you using your time at Duke to develop these competencies? There's so many ways to do it. You'll find your own ways to do them. You also really want to be skilled at developing relationships. When you think about what providers have to do to quickly develop rapport and trust with people, get them to share highly private information, this is a really important skill to develop. And so all those relational service opportunities, as well as other things you might do, are chances to do this. You also want to find ways to where you just, as a reflex, respect the humanity of a broad set of people. That means you understand difference and appreciate it and can feel empathy toward people whose walk in life has been very different from yours. And then, of course, it's also important to develop that intellectual curiosity and critical thinking. While many of these things are going to come through academic choices or opportunities by like research, there are, of course, other ways to do that as well. These are all things that help you to develop passion, skills, as well as commitment to highly focused, challenging learning and problem solving. So we have a variety of ways for you to start to gain experience. This is just a listing without details. But again, if you're on our website or if you're on our listserv, we push out announcements around these things throughout the semester. And then the final word is just a reminder that your professionalism starts now. Applications to medical school as well as other health professions are going to be asked to report institutional actions or criminal records. You'll be subject to background checks because of the responsibility we place on our healthcare providers. It's so much easier to apply and will cause you a lot less worry and anxiety if you have a clean record rather than having to explain a past error in judgment. For this reason, we highly urge you to not acquire or use a fake ID, avoid drug and alcohol and other conduct violations, especially ones in the academic realm like plagiarism, cheating on coursework, misrepresenting yourself, and things like the incapacitation form or resumes. Also, be mindful of your social media and make sure to make a good impression. All right, so that hopefully will get you started as you make your way into the Duke community. The Health Professions Advising Office is eager to work with you this fall. We understand that doing group-based advising is not as comfortable as doing the one-on-one advising, but just please know that during our staff shortages, we're committed to working with you. We'll make ourselves available to you and try to give you the most highly personalized advising that we're able to do given the situation. And are optimistic that the staff shortages will not be with us long, and we'll be back to being fully staffed and able to do more of our traditional services. So welcome to Duke. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you at our events this fall.